Hi there, everyone. This is Cheryl Murray Powell, and I'm the host for the MMERI show. That's the Medical Marijuana Education and Research Initiative show, funded and sponsored by Florida A&M University. I am really pleased to have online with me one of my mentors, Dr. Ellen Grizzle. Her name is known around the world for research with regards to medical cannabis. She's also a world-renowned pharmacist. She led the Pharmacy Association for the Caribbean, and she's done a lot of things. She was the head pharmacist for the country of Jamaica at one time. She was recently on Heroes Day honored by the country of Jamaica a few years ago. So it's just great to speak to her every time I get a chance to speak with her. Dr. Grizzle, how are you this morning?
I am giving thanks, as we say here. It's a beautiful day here in Jamaica, and I'm alive.
Awesome. Well, with the COVID, I know you like being with your students, but you're not able to be with your students at this time. Let's talk about medical cannabis in Jamaica. You are over the master's area, the higher level degree area for research at the University of Technology, Jamaica. Yes. And you have influenced many, many students, mentored many, many students in your time. So yes. Let's go back to 2015 and how your world changed with the 2015 amendment to the Dangerous Drugs Act in Jamaica, which allowed you to do this type of research.
Yes, by 2015, after years of lobbying, the government of Jamaica created a decriminalized medicinal cannabis regime that allowed and really asked universities to lead in terms of a new paradigm as to how the country would go forward in terms of cannabis. As you know, we have a history.
Yes.
Starting in 1845 with cannabis, and many, many medicinal uses were identified by the folk people. And so the challenge for my university then was to put some science behind some of those claims, as well as prepare a path for moving forward in a global medical cannabis regime. The idea was that we're not going to leave out the people who originally did the work. We respect them, but we're trying to now put the science behind what the things that they have found. Or the belly ache, as we say in Jamaica, or the eye. We had medicines for glaucoma and asthma and so on. All of these, ways in which the folk in Jamaica had used what we call ganja.
So you're one of the experts that are responsible for taking the anecdotal data from the Rastafarian community, the indigenous community, the maroon community, anyone who used ganja as an herb, as a medicine, as relief, and then putting it in the scientific realm so it can be proven theory for greater access.
Yes, basically that was part of our charge.
Okay.
And the other part was now to prepare for further research and development and also generation of wealth, not only for the country, but for the people, indigenous people, and for university, which is a critical part of the whole business of medical cannabis.
Excellent. How do you guide the university as far as their partnership with Jamaicans interested in being in the field, or license holders who are interested in learning more and producing more marijuana?
Those of you who work in the academic realm will understand when I say it's not an easy task. No, academics are sometimes very conservative. And we have a culture in this country that almost disdains, in many, many zones or areas, the whole idea of cannabis. There's a religious prescription and a number of things that people grew up with. So just to accept the change paradigm is challenging. But we've seen some success. We've seen increase in basic medical science research. In medical cannabis, just students doing their little, potency and so on. And we've seen some clinical research as well that has emerged from collaboration with you hear the music, which, which has emerged among the practitioners,
right.
who are trying. And also, no, interestingly, we see prototype development of other formulations
Okay.
that are very interesting. That is a blend between cannabis and other candidate herbs. So a lot of evolution has taken place, and we see that now, and it's very exciting now to be part of this. I call it a movement where you see more and more people are being persuaded,
Yes,
both in the scientific field, the clinical field, and the ordinary public who have used and had experience with it and want to see, you know, how they can formalize their involvement in the medical cannabis field, as I say, from the patient side. So, you know, in Jamaica, we are allowed the 5 plants.
yes.
The law allows
Let's talk about that. In
yes,
Jamaica, you're allowed home grow for medicinal purposes. So what does that look like?
Well, the law allows you in the privacy of your own home to cultivate 5 plants that you can use for your own therapy, treatment, relief, or however you may wish to use it. But you are allowed 5 plants, and nobody will molest you in your home with your 5 plants. You can actually be free to do that. And so some people have taken advantage of it to have their own little home garden with their 5 plants. Yes.
And do you think there's abuse of that, or it's been a good practice that's been adopted in a compliant way?
Not in my knowledge, and not to my knowledge. And I find too that some of those 5 planters, they want their products tested too, because there's an element of competition among the home growers to see who has the best.
Right. So they want to get involved in ganja cups. They want to be competitive with their horticultural skills.
Yes, there are 5 plants in their backyard. So it's quite an interesting aspect to how the law is being implemented.
Very good. Well, you just touched upon testing, and I know you are very passionate and you advocate for testing of products before it goes to the consumer. Let's talk about your history with testing and some of your partners, and how that's been working out, and how you've expanded the concept of testing across the island and the Caribbean.
Well, what has happened now is that our university is owned by the government of Jamaica. That's the University of Technology, Jamaica. So our mandate has a kind of national tinge to it. But in terms of building capacity, in terms of testing, and you know the cost of just equipment to do the testing, we had to do international alliances. So we've done a couple, and we've have benefited not only from the equipment, but we have benefited from their knowledge, knowledge transfer. And so we've been at the very basic pushing, because it has a cost to it. And so not everybody can afford all of it. But at the very basic level, we're pushing for potency and some of the microbial tests, the aflatoxins A and B, some of the very basic tests. And it has not been easy, because people are accustomed to cultivate their cannabis and use it and no testing.
Right.
But if you are serious about medical cannabis and you really want to get into medical cannabis, you will test.
Right.
You will test, you must test, because you are going to give somebody a product, and if it's not clean, let me use that word that people will get, and that means testing of various levels, then you are putting people at risk from a product that basically on its own does not have that risk associated with its use. But if you don't cultivate it properly, if it's not clean, if it has mold, if it has so many different heavy metals and all of that, then you're adding some impurities to the product, and that can cause harm to human beings.
Well, it's clear that you're a leader as far as public safety with the use and legalization of cannabis. So I'm going to thank you for our part 1. We're going to come back with part 2 of our conversation with Dr. Ellen Grizzle. And thank you so much. You've been a great mentor to me, and I can't wait till we drill down into more detail around the research that's being done, which is extremely exciting, and also the cultivation that's happening in Jamaica. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Florida A&M University's Medical Marijuana Education and Research Initiative, or MMERI, wants you to know that we take your health seriously. That's why we bring you our neighborhood forums and our weekly MMERI Forum radio program. During this coronavirus outbreak, remember, wash your hands often, clean and disinfect frequently used objects, and stay home whenever possible. Please visit our website at meri.famu.edu for more information. MMERI, educating minorities about marijuana for medical use and the impact of the unlawful use of marijuana on minority communities.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the MMERI show, the MMERI show by Florida A&M University. I'm your host, Cheryl Murray Powell. We are back with Dr. Ellen Grizzle from the University of Technology in Jamaica. She was sharing with us in the last segment some of the changes that have happened since the Dangerous Drug Act was amended in 2015. Now we're going to talk about, Jamaica as it's known for, biodiversity of cannabis strains and some of what she's seen with regards to that. So Dr. Grizzle, let's talk about ganja in Jamaica, how they go hand in hand, but now we're seeing a little bit more diversity. There isn't a Jamaican strain. There are a variety of Jamaican strains for different things and produced by different people. So give us some insight into that area.
Well, I'll begin in a kind of geographical way. I'm on the ocean now. But as you know from your very many visits to Jamaica, we have mountains and we have the sea.
Yes.
And depending on what part of Jamaica you're in, you are going to have a different kind of cannabis product that emerges from that region. So that we have cannabis that's grown in the Blue Mountains, in the marshes of St. Elizabeth, etc., etc. And that's what makes Jamaica so exciting, because you don't know what you'll find. And just a gold mine for prospectors who want to find new things and so on. And the knowledge of a lot of that is locked into the minds of the people who are cultivating for years.
Right.
And so they know the differences between the areas. All right, so the matter of diversity then, which is what I'm trying to introduce in the conversation. Jamaica is well known worldwide for the diversity of its herbal legacy.
Yes.
And that the terpenes in your cannabis are going to be very slightly different depending on the region in which you reap the cannabis from. So
and terpenes are a portion, particle, a compound in the cannabis plant, and it's usually associated with the scent of the plant. Is that correct?
Scent, but also, no, interestingly from research, also therapeutic value.
Oh, wow. Okay. Excellent.
So each terpene has been defined for its therapeutic value, apart from the scent. It has research now shows that depending on what product you're doing. If you're doing an asthma product, there's a certain terpene you would want to have in that product.
Right.
And so on and so forth. So the full spectrum thing is really, people want to preserve the terpene in their product. But
right.
So we have this diversity in Jamaica. And so depending on where you are, you can find that. So arising from that and the fact that we have natural knowledge about cultivation and so on, we have started on this journey of doing for ourselves as a university research into medicines based on the constituents of the type of cannabis that you have reaped. So if asthma, which terpene? If it's glaucoma, which terpene? Because Professor Manley West, who came up with the first 2 medicines in the world.
Right. Canasol, I know that one.
And he did that work. He did some of that work and developed a lot of methodologies in the lab to separate and to select us. So we're building on a basis. So what happens now is that we are doing that kind of research that is taking advantage, I don't like the word exploiting, of the diversity of the Jamaican cannabis, and also adding to it other candidate plants so that we can get a beautiful mix and produce some serious products that we can enter into clinical trials to really test. Because, that's the cutting edge. If you don't have a trial behind it, you don't have a product.
Right.
And that is where developing states like my country were at a disadvantage when Prof did the capsule, because they did not take it to clinical trial.
And
so now we have,
Clinical trials are very expensive. They're very costly, in the millions of dollars. So that's kind of a barrier to entry for all of these products that have been created in the Caribbean that people know work, or they've tested on themselves, anecdotally work, but they don't have the clinical trials. So they want to use it, and they know there's efficacy, but they cannot afford to take it to market.
Yes, and so what is happening now in our university? We have developed a clinical trials group.
Excellent.
We've people who have a lot of ideas. Jamaican people have this product and they know it's good for this and they've been using it and so on. Now we are trying to encourage them to come in with their product, talk about it, tell us what it's used for. Let us see how we can develop a prototype in the lab for your product, and let us cost the clinical trials. What we find is that the rest of the world is interested in these prototypes.
Right.
The single problem that our people have now, because you can get investors, is who owns whatever comes out of it.
The intellectual property rights.
Right. That's why we need lawyers like you.
Thank you. I'm there. I'm there as often as I can be. I don't do IP, unfortunately.
Yeah, but we need lawyers who are interested in that. We found one or two in Jamaica now, sprinkling. Yes. But we don't have enough, and they cost quite a bit of money. But that's the area where we want to see wealth generated for our indigenous people, for the people who use cannabis, and for our university, because we sit at the center of that whole new direction, and we embrace the role, because we are happy to see that we can be of service, and university should be of service to people.
That's right. That's why they're
dinosaurs that do research and store them in a library like the one you're sitting in. We really should be doing stuff that improves human lives, and so we are animated by that kind of research work, and we are very, very pleased at the response that we are getting from the ordinary folk who have a product and they would like to see how they can earn a living from it, and they're doing all sorts of experimentation now with cannabis. That not only the plant and the flower and the thing, they're all the waste. They are coming up with products. For COVID-19 is a prime example. People are looking at, coming up with kind of herbal disinfectants that would actually include cannabis among other active ingredients.
That's beautiful.
For example, a lot of that herbal disinfectant thing, people are looking at including cannabis at less than 0.02% in the mix, along with other herbs that are known to have the kind of properties that will, in terms of antiviral and antibacterial and so on. So
that's really interesting that cannabis is being used for that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, tell me about your work with other universities, including, I know you have a relationship with Harvard University, and there was a trip for their it's a long name, but the Phytomedicine Cannabinoid Institute that they
recently created.
That they recently created, and I think it was last year, March, that there was a meeting, or March or May, and then Utech actually went to the meeting and was represented. So let's talk about your collaboration.
They came to our university.
And they came
to our university. We were so honored.
And thanks to you, I was able to sit in on the meetings with Harvard, which was amazing. And I think Utech shined really bright in those meetings as well. So I think both universities were in awe of each other.
Yes.
So can you talk really briefly about your collaborations?
Harvard is well resourced, and Utech is a university that's owned by a government that has but we don't have resources, so we have to think through our problems, and it's no limitation to what you can think about and innovate. That's something that the mind is the barrier to that, and if your mind is open, you'll be So they have come back since.
Oh, okay.
Yes, they have got approval from our government now, and so they are in the country doing their field work, as they call it, talking to farmers, doing interviews, and I guess they will do joint research papers and so on, because they are fascinated by what the ordinary Jamaican is doing with this plant that the world is just now discovering.
Right.
Yes. And so, Jamaicans can be quite sanguine on the matter of cannabis, because we've been using it for such a long time.
Right.
So they are here and they're learning. I think it's primarily a learning thing for them. Don't know about the papers that will be published, how they will share those papers. We are anxious to ensure that they share the papers and acknowledge the indigenous knowledge that they have included. For too
That's
long,
very
we have come
important.
to the country and used Jamaican wisdom, published papers, got credit for it, and never acknowledged the source of that wisdom. So yeah, we are just very anxious about that.
Right.
Piece, you know, but if they play the game fairly, then they will find that people will be willing to support them. And because of the brand name that is Harvard, we of course are very honored that they should look to Jamaica for some of the I guess, the publications and experimentation that is to follow.
I just think it's a great merger of academics, you know, coming together, different institutions that are both regarded highly, coming together to give birth to a new perception about what's possible with medical cannabis. So medical cannabis, medical ganja, medical marijuana, however you want to term it. But there's a lot of exciting things happening. I didn't know that Harvard had returned for a second visit, and they're actually actively in their work now. So congratulations to Utech for that partnership.
Yeah, man, they're on their work. And you know, their visit, it was not a one-way street, because the fact that a university of that stature would be coming to look at medicine, that meant that our own academics in the university looked up.
Oh, yeah.
So,
well, you know, I've always said that I have a lot of respect for Utech and the type of research and how the students are encouraged to explore in that university environment with supervision. So I have a strong affinity. There's definitely a place in my heart for Utech, and of course for you, Dr. Grizzle. So we just thank you for your work, and thank you for preparing the next generation of cannabis entrepreneurs, cannabis scientists, cannabis physicians, cannabis food science experts. And it's a great contribution. And we thank you. We definitely have to have you on the show again. And we appreciate you joining us. And this is Cheryl. I'm signing off for MMERI.
Thanks for the invite.
Oh my goodness, it's always good to see you. You're always smiling, and your brain. It's when they say a beautiful mind. That's Dr. Ellen Grizzle. Because your mind is always going. You're always on the next level. It's just very strategic, but really want to not leave behind the people who started things. And I really respect you for that.
Yes,
much respect. All right. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Ellen Grizzle. And that's the end of this segment of MMERI with Florida A&M University.